The sun was beginning its slow descent behind the rolling hills, casting a golden hue across the small town of Willow Creek. The air was filled with the sweet scent of freshly cut hay, mingling with the earthy aroma of the nearby fields. Horses whinnied in the distance, their neighs echoing through the quiet streets as the townsfolk began to prepare for the annual summer fair. It was a time when the community came together, laughter and music blending harmoniously, but for Caleb, the cowboy who had inherited his family's farm, it was just another day filled with the weight of solitude. Caleb stood in the barn, his calloused hands gripping the wooden railing as he watched the last rays of sunlight dance across the sky. His heart felt heavy, a familiar ache that had settled within him since the day he lost his wife, Sarah. It had been years since that tragic day, yet the memories clung to him like the dust that settled on his boots. He had poured his soul into the land, tending to the cattle and crops, hoping to fill the void left behind. But no matter how hard he worked, the emptiness remained, and the laughter of the fair seemed a distant echo he could never quite grasp. On the other side of Willow Creek, Clara was setting up her booth at the fair. She had moved to this quaint town seeking inspiration, a refuge from the heartbreak of her past. An artist at heart, she longed to express her emotions through her paintings, yet insecurity often held her back. As she arranged her colourful canvases under the soft glow of string lights, she felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was her opportunity to share her work, to connect with others, but the fear of vulnerability loomed over her. Clara's thoughts drifted to her last relationship, a painful chapter that left her doubting her worth. She had arrived in Willow Creek with dreams of starting anew, yet the shadows of her past whispered doubts that gnawed at her heart. Would anyone appreciate her art? Could she ever open herself up to love again? The questions circled her mind like restless birds, but she pushed them aside, determined to embrace this moment with an open heart. As the fair began to buzz with life, Clara's gaze wandered around the lively atmosphere. Children laughed and chased each other, their faces painted with bright colors, while couples strolled hand in hand, sharing secrets and smiles. In that moment, she felt a pang of longing, a desire for connection that seemed just out of reach. She took a deep breath, inhaling the sweet scent of cotton candy and popcorn, reminding herself that she was here to rediscover joy. Amidst the laughter and chatter, Caleb decided to take a break from his chores and wander into town. He had always been a man of few words, preferring the company of his horses to that of people. Yet, something drew him toward the fair, a faint flicker of curiosity igniting in his chest. As he approached, the sounds of music and merriment enveloped him, creating an unfamiliar warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold solitude he often felt. His eyes scanned the crowd, landing on the vibrant booths adorned with crafts and treats, and then, as if pulled by an invisible force, he found himself standing in front of Clara's display. Her paintings were a burst of color, each canvas alive with emotion. He could see the passion behind every brushstroke, and it resonated within him in ways he hadn't felt in a long time. His heart raced as he took a step closer, his breath catching in his throat. Clara, sensing someone nearby, turned to see Caleb standing there, his rugged figure framed by the fading sunlight. For a brief moment, their eyes locked, and time seemed to stand still. Caleb's dark eyes held a depth that stirred something deep within her, while Clara's vibrant spirit seemed to shine like a beacon in the dimming light. But as quickly as their connection sparked, doubt crept in, and both turned their gazes away. "Do you paint these?" Caleb finally managed to ask, his voice low and hesitant. Clara felt her heart flutter at the sound of his deep voice. "Yes," she replied, her cheeks warming under his gaze. "I try to capture moments, emotions. This one she gestured toward a painting of a sunset over the fields, is inspired by the beauty of this town. Caleb stepped closer, his curiosity piqued. It's beautiful, he said softly, his eyes lingering on the painting. It reminds me of the evenings out on the ranch. For Clara, his words felt like a gentle caress, igniting a spark of hope. Thank you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been trying to find my place here, to feel inspired. They exchanged shy smiles, the air between them thick with unspoken words. Yet, despite the undeniable chemistry, fear held them both captive. Caleb felt the weight of his past pressing down on him, reminding him of the love he had lost, while Clara grappled with her insecurities, convinced that opening her heart again might lead to more pain. As the fair continued around them, the brief interaction left an imprint on their hearts. Each returned to their respective worlds, but the memory of that moment lingered, weaving a thread of connection between them. Clara found herself stealing glances at him throughout the evening, her heart racing whenever their eyes met. Caleb, on the other hand, felt a warmth spreading through him, a flicker of hope that perhaps love could find its way back into his life. As night fell, the fair transitioned into a tapestry of twinkling lights and laughter. Clara spent the rest of the evening painting, trying to capture the essence of the fleeting emotions that danced around her. Her brush moved almost instinctively, each stroke blending the colors of longing and hope onto the canvas. But no matter how hard she tried to focus, Caleb's presence haunted her thoughts, leaving her both exhilarated and terrified of the possibilities. Meanwhile, Caleb found himself returning to the barn, the familiar surroundings providing little comfort. He leaned against the wooden fence, gazing out at the stars that twinkled like distant memories. The pain of his past was still there, but Clara's smile lingered in his mind, a soft reminder that life could still hold beauty. He hadn't felt this way in years, and it both frightened and thrilled him. As days turned into weeks, the fair became a memory, but the connection between Clara and Caleb continued to grow, albeit from a distance. They would occasionally see each other in town, a shy smile exchanged, a fleeting moment that left them both yearning for more. Clara often found herself painting late into the night, her canvases reflecting the emotions that stirred within her. Each stroke of her brush felt like a conversation with her heart, a plea for courage to embrace the love she so desperately craved. Caleb, too, found himself thinking about Clara more often than he cared to admit. He would catch himself daydreaming while tending to the cattle, imagining what it would be like to share a quiet evening with her, to talk about their dreams and fears, to find solace in each other's company. Yet the fear of opening up, of risking his heart once more, kept him at bay. Then one fateful afternoon, the skies darkened unexpectedly, and rain began to pour, turning the fields into a sea of mud. Caleb was in the barn, securing his horses, when he heard a soft knock on the door. To his surprise, Clara stood there, drenched but smiling, her eyes bright with determination. "Caleb, I came to help," she said, her voice barely audible over the sound of the rain. "I know you're busy, but I couldn't just sit at home while you might need assistance." He was taken aback by her kindness, a warmth spreading through him that he had almost forgotten existed. "Are you sure?" he asked, hesitating. "It's not exactly the best weather for—" "I don't mind," she interrupted, stepping inside, shaking off the rain like a determined little bird. "I want to help." In that moment, something shifted within Caleb. The spark of connection they had felt at the fair ignited anew, and he couldn't help but admire her courage. "All right then," he said, a smile creeping onto his face. "Let's get to work." As they toiled together, the rain continued to pour, but the storm only deepened their bond. Clara's laughter echoed through the barn as they shared stories, each moment revealing pieces of their heart. Caleb found himself opening up in ways he hadn't anticipated, sharing memories of his wife and the struggles of running the farm alone. Clara listened intently, her heart aching for the man who had endured so much pain. In turn, Clara shared her own journey of healing, her fears and dreams spilling out like colors on a canvas. She told him about her art and the way it helped her express what words could not. With every word, the barriers they had built around their hearts began to crumble, and for the first time in years, Caleb felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps he could allow someone in again. As the rain continued to fall outside, they found themselves drawn closer, their laughter and shared stories creating a cocoon of warmth amidst the storm. Caleb's heart raced as he realized how much he enjoyed Clara's company, how her presence filled the emptiness he had carried for so long. Clara too felt the weight of her insecurities begin to lift, replaced by a growing sense of belonging. But just as they were beginning to truly connect, the storm outside intensified, and with it, Caleb's fear of losing someone again surfaced. He caught himself retreating, the walls he had let down threatening to rise once more. Clara noticed the change in his demeanor, and for a brief moment, doubt crept into her heart. Would he pull away as he had before? Would he be unable to embrace the possibility of love? As the rain lashed against the barn, their laughter faded into silence, the tension palpable. Caleb's gaze fell to the ground, his mind racing with conflicting emotions. Clara's heart sank as she watched him withdraw, the warmth of their earlier connection slipping away like water through his fingers. Just as the silence grew heavy, a loud crack of thunder echoed outside, jolting Caleb from his thoughts. He looked up, his eyes meeting Clara's, and in that moment he saw the fear mirrored in her gaze. It was a moment of shared vulnerability, a reminder that they were both navigating uncharted waters. "Clara," he began, his voice steady yet soft. "I don't want to hurt you. I've lost so much, and I'm not sure I can open my heart again." Her heart ached at his words, the vulnerability in his eyes piercing through her defenses. "I understand," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been afraid too, but sometimes the risk is worth it, isn't it?" Caleb felt the weight of her words settle in the space between them. The storm outside raged on, but in that tiny barn they had created a sanctuary of understanding. He took a step closer, his heart pounding as he searched her eyes for answers. "What if we take it slow?" he suggested, his voice tentative. "What if we just see where this goes?" Clara's breath caught in her throat, hope blooming within her. "I would like that," she said, her smile returning, illuminating the shadows that had lingered in their hearts. "Let's take it one day at a time." With that simple promise, the storm outside began to lose its fury, as if the world was aligning with their decision. They spent the rest of the afternoon in each other's company, sharing stories and dreams as the rain drummed softly on the roof above them. As evening fell, the air grew still and a sense of peace enveloped them, a promise of new beginnings glimmering on the horizon. Caleb felt a warmth spread through him, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. For the first time in years, he began to believe that perhaps love could find its way back into his heart. And Clara, standing beside him, felt a sense of belonging that she had longed for, the connection between them growing stronger with each passing moment. As they shared laughter and dreams amidst the remnants of the storm, they both knew that this was just the beginning of something beautiful, a journey that would lead them toward healing, love, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. As the rain subsided, a gentle glow of twilight enveloped the landscape, casting a soft light across the fields and the small town of Willow Creek. The air was crisp, fragrant with the earthy scent of wet soil and blooming wildflowers. Clara stood beside Caleb, feeling the warmth of his presence radiate against the cool evening breeze. Her heart fluttered, a mix of excitement and apprehension swirling within her. They had just shared an intimate moment, a glimpse into each other's souls, and it felt as if the world around them faded into a soothing background hum. Caleb turned to Clara, his deep blue eyes reflecting the fading golden light. "I never thought I'd find someone to share a stormy night with again," he said, his voice a low rumble, almost lost in the gentle rustle of leaves. There was a vulnerability in his tone that made Clara's heart ache. It was a reminder of the loneliness that had defined their lives for so long. "Neither did I," Clara admitted, her gaze dropping to her hands as she absently twisted a lock of hair around her finger. "After everything, I thought I might be destined for solitude." The admission slipped out before she could stop herself, raw and candid. Caleb studied her, the shadows of his past flickering in his expression. He understood the weight of solitude all too well. "It's easy to feel that way," he replied, his voice softer now. "Especially when life throws so many challenges our way." He paused, as if collecting his thoughts. "But sometimes it's in the unexpected moments that we find what we've been missing." Clara looked up, her heart pounding at the depth of his words. There was a sincerity in Caleb that she hadn't encountered in a long time, and it pulled her closer to him. Do you think we can really find happiness again?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Caleb's expression grew contemplative. "I'd like to believe so, but it takes courage to open up, to let someone in." His eyes held hers, and for a moment, the world around them ceased to exist. The vulnerability between them hung in the air like a fragile thread, waiting to be woven into something beautiful. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Clara felt a rush of warmth, a sense of belonging that enveloped her like a comforting embrace. The connection they were forging felt like a balm for their weary souls. She took a step closer, emboldened by the moment, and said, "Maybe we can take that leap together." Caleb's heart raced at her words, a flicker of hope igniting within him. "Together," he echoed, a small smile breaking through the shadows of his past. "I'd like that." The promise of the evening lingered between them, an unspoken agreement that they would navigate the complexities of their hearts side by side. As they stood beneath the canopy of stars, Clara felt a sense of calm wash over her. For the first time in years, she sensed the possibility of love blossoming anew. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Caleb and Clara deepened. They spent countless hours together, exploring the beauty of Willow Creek and discovering the simple joys of life. Whether it was walking through the vibrant farmer's market, where the scent of fresh produce mingled with the laughter of children, or sharing stories by the fire as the sun dipped below the horizon, every moment felt special. They became companions on a journey of healing, each step forging a path toward understanding and acceptance. Caleb found himself drawn to Clara's artistic spirit. He often watched her as she painted, her brush gliding gracefully across the canvas, capturing the essence of their surroundings. The way she lost herself in her creations fascinated him, and he admired the passion that radiated from her every stroke. One afternoon, as they sat in a sun-drenched meadow, Clara handed him a brush, encouraging him to join her in creating a piece of art together. "I don't think I have an artist's touch," Caleb chuckled, feeling self-conscious as he dipped the brush into the vibrant colors. "But I'll give it a try." "Just let your feelings guide you," Clara encouraged, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Art is about expression, not perfection." As he began to paint, Caleb felt the tension in his shoulders ease, the weight of his past lifting with each stroke. Clara's laughter filled the air, creating a melody that danced around them. In that moment, he discovered a new side of himself, one that could create beauty, even amidst the scars. "I see you, Caleb," Clara said softly, her voice breaking through his concentration. "You're more than just the cowboy who lost everything. You're a man capable of so much more." Her words resonated deeply within him, stirring emotions he had buried for far too long. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw the artist, the dreamer, the kindred spirit who had entered his life like a gentle breeze. "You make me want to be more," he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. "You've opened my eyes to what's possible." As they continued to paint, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape. They shared laughter and stories, their hearts intertwining, as they created a masterpiece that reflected their journey together. A tapestry of colors that represented healing, hope, and the blossoming love between them. However, just as their connection seemed to solidify, the shadows of their pasts loomed ever closer. Caleb's heart was still haunted by the memories of his late wife, the pain of loss echoing in the quiet moments of his thoughts. He often found himself slipping into a state of melancholy, questioning whether he truly had the right to love again. Clara, too, grappled with her fears. Despite the warmth she felt for Caleb, she was plagued by insecurities that whispered doubts into her mind. Would he ever truly see her? Would he be able to love someone who had been so broken? The weight of these thoughts threatened to overshadow the brightness they had created together. One evening, as Clara sat in her studio, she decided to paint a portrait of Caleb, capturing his essence as she had come to know it. She allowed her emotions to guide her brush, pouring her heart into the canvas. But as she painted, the shadows of doubt crept in, and she couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. What if he didn't feel the same way? What if her heart was destined to break once more? Meanwhile, Caleb found himself wandering the fields under the luminous moonlight, reflecting on his journey with Clara. He could feel her presence in every corner of his life, the way she laughed, the way her eyes sparkled with passion, and the way she ignited a warmth within him that he thought had long been extinguished. But with that warmth came fear. The thought of losing her, of letting her down, gnawed at him. The tension reached a breaking point when Clara invited Caleb to her art exhibition, her heart racing with anticipation. She hoped that this would be a celebration of their connection, a moment to share their journey with the world. But as the day approached, her insecurities bubbled to the surface, and she worried about how Caleb would respond to her art, and to her. When the night of the exhibition arrived, Clara stood nervously by her paintings, the gallery filled with laughter and conversation. She spotted Caleb across the room, his tall frame silhouetted against the soft glow of the lights. As he approached, her heart raced, but she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. "Wow, Clara," he said, his voice filled with genuine awe. "These are incredible." He studied her work, admiration shining in his eyes. "You've captured so much emotion." Clara felt a rush of warmth at his words, but noticed a flicker of hesitation in his gaze. "I'm glad you think so," she replied, trying to mask her anxiety. It's about finding beauty in vulnerability." Caleb nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I can see that," he said slowly. "You're so brave to share this with everyone." But beneath his admiration lay an unspoken tension, a wall that seemed to rise between them. As the evening unfolded, Clara noticed Caleb becoming distant, lost in his thoughts. She felt a knot tighten in her stomach, and the joyous atmosphere around her began to feel suffocating. Moments passed, and she caught glimpses of him glancing at her artwork, but his expression remained unreadable. Finally, when they found a quiet corner away from the crowd, Clara took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "Caleb, is everything okay? You seem different tonight." He looked at her, his blue eyes filled with an ocean of emotions. "I'm just trying to process everything," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "This is all so new for me, Clara. I don't want to let you down." Her heart sank at his words, a mixture of understanding and frustration swirling within her. "You're not letting me down," she said softly, stepping closer. "I just want you to be open with me. We've shared so much. I thought we were moving forward together." Caleb hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I'm scared," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. "Scared of losing you. I've lost so much already." Clara's heart ached for him, and she reached out, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "You don't have to be afraid, Caleb. I'm here. We're in this together." But as the words left her lips, the weight of their unspoken fears hung heavy in the air. The shadows of their pasts loomed large, threatening to overshadow the connection they had built. Caleb's heart raced with uncertainty, and he felt the walls he had meticulously constructed begin to tremble. "I just need time," he said finally, his voice wavering. "I need to figure out how to be me again," Clara nodded, feeling her heart ache. "I understand, but I don't want to lose you to your fears." In that moment, the distance between them felt insurmountable, each battling their own insecurities. The warmth of their bond flickered, threatened by the shadows of their pasts, leaving them both standing at a crossroads. As the night wore on, Clara felt a sense of despair settling in. She had opened her heart to Caleb, only to find the door of his soul still locked. The art she had created now seemed like a reflection of her own vulnerability, a poignant reminder of the connection they had yet to fully embrace. But beneath the uncertainty, a flicker of hope remained. Clara took a deep breath, reminding herself that love was a journey, not a destination. Perhaps the shadows could be navigated, and together they could find the light that awaited them on the other side. As the days turned into weeks, Clara and Caleb found themselves navigating the delicate balance between their individual fears and the budding connection that had ignited between them. The storm that had once threatened to tear apart their fragile bond had instead forged a new path, one that was rich with possibility and uncertainty. Each encounter brought with it a mixture of anticipation and trepidation, as they both grappled with the weight of their pasts and the allure of what could be. Clara continued to paint, her easel now a constant companion as she sought to capture the essence of the world around her. The vibrant colors danced across the canvas, much like the emotions swirling within her. The strokes were bold when she thought of Caleb, each brush of her hand echoing the heartbeat that quickened in his presence. Yet, amid the beauty she created, there lingered an ache, an unfulfilled longing that pushed her to confront the deeper layers of her heart. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across the fields, Clara set up her easel by the edge of the meadow. The scent of wildflowers wafted in the gentle breeze, mingling with the earthy fragrance of freshly tilled soil. She took a moment to breathe in the serenity, her heart heavy with thoughts of Caleb. It had been nearly a month since they had shared that fateful night, and yet the distance between them felt both tangible and intangible, like a thread that connected them while also holding them apart. As she painted, her thoughts drifted to the cowboy whose soul was etched with the scars of loss. She saw him in every brushstroke, not just as the rugged figure who worked the land, but as a man who bore the weight of grief in his eyes. The vulnerability she had glimpsed in him haunted her, igniting a fierce desire to reach out and bridge the gap between their worlds. But how could she break through the walls he had constructed around his heart? Caleb, on the other hand, was wrestling with his own demons. The storm had forced him to confront his solitude, and though Clara's presence had brought a flicker of warmth into his life, he found himself retreating at the slightest hint of vulnerability. Each day at the farm, he moved through the motions with a heavy heart, the memories of his late wife still casting a long shadow over his every thought. He was a man who had loved deeply, and the fear of opening that door again felt like a betrayal, not only to her memory, but to himself as well. On a particularly crisp morning, as the frost clung to the grass like tiny diamonds, Caleb found himself drawn to the local cafe, a small, rustic place that served the best coffee in town. The warmth inside was a stark contrast to the chill outside, and as he sipped his drink, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant to be somewhere else. The aroma of freshly baked pastries filled the air, but it was the thought of Clara that lingered in his mind, a bittersweet reminder of the connection they had yet to explore. Just as he was about to leave, the door swung open, and in walked Clara, her cheeks flushed from the cold, her eyes sparkling with determination. She scanned the room, and when their gazes met, a spark ignited, illuminating the space between them. For a moment, the world around them faded, and all that remained was the unspoken understanding that lingered in the air. "Caleb," she greeted, her voice a soft melody that wrapped around him like a warm blanket. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I could say the same," he replied, his heart racing at the sight of her. "What brings you out on a day like this?" "I needed some inspiration," she answered, a hint of mischief dancing in her eyes. "And a good cup of coffee, of course." They settled into a corner table, the intimacy of the space wrapping them in a cocoon. The chatter of other patrons faded into the background as they talked, their conversation flowing effortlessly from one topic to another. Clara shared her latest paintings, animatedly describing the colors and emotions behind each piece, while Caleb found himself captivated not only by her words, but by the passion that lit up her face. Yet beneath the surface, tension crackled like static electricity. Each time their hands brushed against the table, a jolt of energy surged through him, awakening feelings he had long buried. But as they laughed and shared stories, Caleb felt the familiar wall begin to rise, his spirit retreating into the safety of solitude. "Caleb, you're so quiet," Clara said, concern etching her features. "Are you okay?" He forced a smile, but it felt like a mask. "Just lost in my thoughts, I guess." "About what?" She pressed gently, her eyes searching his for answers. He hesitated, the weight of his past pressing heavily on his chest. "About everything," he replied finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "About what it means to let someone in again." Clara's heart ached at his words, and for a brief moment she saw the flicker of vulnerability in his gaze. "You deserve happiness, Caleb. You deserve to let someone in." The moment hung between them, thick with unspoken emotions. He looked down at his hands, rough and calloused from years of work, and Clara felt a pang of empathy for the man who had carried so much alone. "It's not that simple," he murmured, his voice heavy with the weight of his grief. "I know it's not," Clara said softly, her heart racing with the urge to comfort him. "But sometimes the hardest steps are the ones that lead us to where we truly belong." Caleb met her gaze, and in that fleeting moment he saw the world beyond his pain, the world where love could bloom again. But just as quickly as the thought came, it faded, leaving him feeling more lost than ever. "I need time, Clara," he said, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. "I understand," she replied, her heart sinking. "But just know that I'm here, whenever you're ready." As they finished their coffee, a silent promise hung in the air, one that neither of them could fully grasp. The connection was undeniable, yet the wounds of the past threatened to overshadow the hope of a future together. Days turned into weeks again, and Clara found herself painting more fervently than ever. Each stroke on the canvas became a cathartic release, a way to express the feelings that had begun to bubble to the surface. She poured her heart into her work, creating pieces that captured the beauty of vulnerability and the strength that comes from opening one's heart. One afternoon, as she stood before her easel, a sudden inspiration struck her. She began to paint a portrait of Caleb, not just as he was, but as she envisioned him, free from the burdens of his past. She imagined him standing tall against the backdrop of the setting sun, the light illuminating the contours of his face, revealing the man he could become if only he would allow himself to feel again. As the colors blended together, Clara felt a surge of hope wash over her. She wanted Caleb to see himself through her eyes, to understand that love could be a balm for his wounds, not a source of pain. The painting took shape, and with each stroke, she whispered silent encouragements to him, urging him to take that leap of faith. Meanwhile, Caleb was grappling with his own emotions. He found himself drawn back to the cafe, often stealing glances at Clara as she painted, her movements graceful and full of life. He felt a pang of longing every time he saw her, but the fear of losing himself again kept him rooted in place. The more he tried to push her away, the more he realized how deeply he craved her presence. Then, one fateful evening, a sudden storm swept through the valley. Dark clouds rolled in, and the wind howled like a restless spirit. As Caleb worked on the farm, the sky opened up, drenching him in a torrential downpour. He fought against the elements, desperately trying to secure the barn doors, but the wind was relentless. In the chaos, he heard a loud crack, followed by an ominous rumble. The old oak tree that stood nearby had succumbed to the storm, crashing down onto the barn, sending a wave of panic through him. He rushed to assess the damage, his heart racing at the thought of what could happen if the storm continued. In the midst of the turmoil, Clara felt an urgency to help. She grabbed her coat and hurried out into the rain, her heart pounding as she made her way toward the farm. When she arrived, the scene was chaotic. Caleb was struggling to lift debris, drenched and determined. "Caleb!" she called, her voice barely audible over the roar of the storm. "Let me help you." He paused, looking up to see her standing there, a figure of determination against the storm. The sight of her ignited something deep within him, a flicker of hope amidst the despair. "You shouldn't be out here," he shouted, but she was already by his side, pulling at the branches with all her strength. Together, they worked side by side, their determination fueling each other as they cleared the wreckage. The rain poured down, mingling with their sweat, but they pressed on, the urgency of the moment stripping away the barriers that had kept them apart. As they toiled, Clara felt the bond between them solidify with each shared glance, each moment of silent understanding. "Why did you come?" Caleb asked breathlessly as they paused for a moment to catch their breath. "Because I care about you," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "And I couldn't just stand by while you faced this alone." In that moment, beneath the stormy sky, something shifted between them. The walls that had kept them apart began to crumble, revealing the raw vulnerability that lay beneath. Caleb's heart raced as he looked into her eyes, seeing not only the strength of her spirit, but the tenderness that lay within. "Clara," he began, his voice trembling with emotion. "I've been so afraid to let you in. I've been hiding behind my pain, but you—" Before he could finish, Clara stepped closer, her heart pounding in sync with his. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm here, Caleb. I'm not going anywhere." And then, in the eye of the storm, they found themselves drawn together, a magnetic pull that defied the chaos surrounding them. The rain poured down around them, but in that moment, the world faded away. Caleb reached for her, his hands trembling as he cupped her face, their breaths mingling in the cool air. "Clara," he whispered, the weight of his heart laid bare. "I'm ready to try." As their lips met, a wave of warmth surged through him, washing away the remnants of his fear. It was a gentle kiss, tentative yet filled with promise, a promise of healing, of connection, of love. The storm raged on around them, but in that moment they were safe, wrapped in the cocoon of each other's embrace. When they finally pulled away, both breathless, the air was charged with a newfound energy. They stood there, soaked and smiling, two souls who had found solace in the midst of uncertainty. The rain continued to fall, but it no longer felt like a storm. It felt like renewal, like the beginning of something beautiful. As the clouds began to part, revealing the first hints of a sunset, Clara took Caleb's hand in hers, intertwining their fingers. "Let's face this together," she said softly, her heart full of hope. Caleb nodded, the weight of his past still there, but now accompanied by the warmth of her presence. "Together," he echoed. And with that simple promise they stepped into the light, ready to embrace whatever came next. In the days that followed, they worked side by side, mending the farm and their hearts. Each moment spent together was a step toward healing, a chance to create new memories that would overshadow the shadows of the past. Clara painted with renewed vigor, capturing the beauty of their journey, while Caleb found joy in the simple act of sharing his life with someone who understood him. As they stood beneath the vast expanse of the sky, the sun shining down on them, they knew they had found something special, a love that transcended their fears, a love that held the promise of new beginnings. They had weathered the storm, and now, together, they would embrace the beauty that lay ahead. And so, under the soft glow of a setting sun, they faced the horizon, hand in hand, ready to step into the future together, where love awaited them, waiting to be discovered anew.